Welcome, everyone, to a very, very, very special episode of Rangers Ed. I am joined here with our producer, PJ. Unfortunately, cousin Ed couldn't be here for this episode. I believe he's helping Theo finish up something for the nursery. So we're just popping on for a few minutes to talk about the recent news in the Rangers coaching and stuff like that. And we'll have what you came here for in a few minutes, the footage from Coach Ed's interview with the New York Rangers as head coach. So that's super exciting that we got that for you guys. So PJ, welcome. How we doing?
Good, man. How are you? Glad to
Very
be
good,
here.
man. Yeah. Back home in my home base. So little Ed is on Long Island today. So glad to be here in front of you guys from the Ranger Room. And so what news we want to bring on? Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. So, since last episode, obviously we talked about the firing of Peter Laviolette, and then Monday we heard that the Penguins and Mike Sullivan, mutually parted ways. So, there was a lot of reports dating back to even 2021 when Gerard Gallant was getting hired that Drury was waiting and waiting for Mike Sullivan to pop around. And then when Peter Laviolette, before he got hired, it was the same thing. Are the Penguins going to let him go? And then lo and behold, on Monday, we found out that news. So, social media was abuzz with that because, a lot of the rumors are that that's his number one choice. So we shall see where this goes.
Yeah, it seems to make sense. I think a lot of I've heard a lot of chatter on NHL radio. Like it's kind of just like similar to Peter Laviolette in a way. But at the same time, I feel like when you hear Sullivan's name, you immediately think success. Laviolette, you kind of got to dig a little deeper. Especially Team USA connections, I think is the biggest thing for me with Chris Drury. And the Rangers over the last couple of years have like drafted and leaned a little bit heavy Team USA or USA born players, so I think that's partially because of Drury, obviously. And then, it would be a good relationship for Team USA, Fox, if Kreider decides to stick around, and other players coming up in the system. So, it's something to think about. And we look forward to the news coming out. I saw Frank Saravelli thinks that the decision will be made by probably the end of this week.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. You're curious, right? Or is Drury going to do? Is he going to do his due diligence still? Is he going to really look around? He probably should, but then also, like, does he want to mess it up and go for his guy that he's been after for basically his whole tenure as a GM? And yeah, I just think he kind of potentially fits what they're looking for, right? Like a actual leader, someone that they're going to control the room, be a good face, and has had more recent success. Peter Laviolette won a cup in 2006. He won back-to-back like 6-7 years ago. So still, pretty recently in the new game where he's had success, which kind of hopes, you could translate if he does become the Rangers coach.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is coaching a player like Crosby and that leadership group. We've been stressing on this podcast, and a lot of people have been chattering about the leadership, and that's what the issue is here. We've been posting a lot of clips on our socials about it, and I think it's the major thing. So, coaching and having a good relationship with what I see is probably the best captain still in the league, maybe what we've seen in the last 10, 20 years from Sidney Crosby. So having a good relationship with him and thriving with him as a leader, I think that would be a good fit, I guess, maybe to kick our current leadership group into gear, or maybe come in like I've been saying, or I guess we've all been saying, is just clean slate of captain or leadership group, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see, like, if he does get brought in, kind of having a fresh set of eyes and, knowing what he was coming through with Crosby and that kind of leader, he'll know really how to identify that too. And you hear how highly Crosby and Malkin and Letang talk about him too. Like, I think Letang was on record saying he doesn't want to play for any other coach ever. So it should be really interesting.
He's got to figure that out, I guess, unless
Yeah, right.
the Rangers are going to bring another. Well, I guess Letang kind of grew on me. I was about to say overrated offensive defenseman, but Letang's a workhorse. You can't really pull him in with those guys. But yeah, who knows? You never know.
Yeah, there's that crazy news too that Brooksy tweeted today that John Cooper potentially, only signed a 1-year deal last year and could end up, taking over in Utah. I guess he's friends with the owner there, which is interesting. I didn't know that. And maybe trying to set up that whole brand up, with a new coach, and which would be crazy. I would never thought he was leaving Tampa if it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it shows that all coaches have an expiration date. I mean, it is odd that he only signed a 1-year deal, so I guess it all makes sense. But like Coach Ed said in our group chat, it's just typical of Larry Brooks looking to stir the pot some way, somehow, and get
I
some
know.
clicks,
And
so
right before they're about, at an
of
elimination game
course.
tonight,
Yeah.
that's got to be
Yeah.
brutal. The last thing I'm sure they wanted to see out there at all, any distraction whatsoever.
Yeah. It's just typical Larry. So, I mean, it is what it is.
And if what an
Who knows?
interesting person, to get that tweet out. Not even like any Tampa writers, even one of the national, like a Friedman or somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very strange. But I think we've let the fans wait enough. Why don't we get to the main event here and tune right into Coach Ed's interview? What do you say?
Yeah, it's special footage for everyone here. It should be interesting. The Rangers haven't hired a coach yet, so let's see what he's got. I mean, did you see they posted the thing on LinkedIn? I mean, it's out there for anyone. So, coach has got a chance.
Coach filled in the application and he got the call. So here we go.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach Ed, what's going on? This is Cousin Drury here. Thanks for joining via Zoom. I know technology is difficult for people your age, but we appreciate you joining. We're trying to go outside the box here with this coaching search. We liked Laviolette, but we're looking at some fresh faces, and I heard some great things about you over there in the AAU, right? That's where you were coaching?
Correct.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, and let's just see where this goes. So, tell us a little bit just generally, about your coaching style. How would you describe it?
Well, I do consider myself a defense first coach. I feel that things have to start from your goalie out. Like we talk about often, the pucks have to get out of your zone, into the other zone, and kept down the other end. And that's how you win games, when the pressure is down the other end. So we need to have discipline in our defensive zone, from the goaltender to the D to the forwards in the right position. I play more of a hybrid type of man-on-man in the defensive zone. I'm not going to have a man stick with their guy the whole time. It's more of a kind of like basketball, where it's man-on-man, but it's a zone, quote unquote. So that's the way I like to do it. I like to have guys have responsibilities to an area and switch off to create less confusion, and not have the other team throw picks and create openings.
Hey, so you must have been watching a lot of Ranger games this year, because we ran pretty much a man-on-man with Peter and Phil. So we're looking at the personnel here. Is that something you're going to bring in here, that you're going to change the man-on-man system? You think that would work better with our personnel, or do you think we need new personnel on the back end? Where are you at? I'm assuming you watch a lot of tape.
I'm comfortable with the personnel that we have there. We have a good group of about, what do we have, 8 defensemen or 8 or 9 defensemen right now. So I think we can make those guys work. Most of them are proven NHLers that played on some successful teams. We just a matter of implementing discipline and the team culture that we need to establish. And I think the guys will come together.
So, I mean, we got to get some guys under contract. That's not your problem, but
that's your job.
Yeah, so Keandre and Zach Jones, they need new deals, so we got to look at that. But assume we run back the same D. We're talking about defense here. Would you be the one that you'd want to make those pairings and have some control over that, or would you really lean on your assistant to be the one that controls that? Would you oversee it? How would you interact with the defensive coach as far as making the pairings?
Well, in the past, I've always felt that the head coach's job in any sport is to make final decisions on personnel. So I would confer with my defensive coach, probably game by game, post game or pre-game going into the next night, and say, if he says, let's try this, I'll think about it. I'll say, no, let's stick with it, whatever the case is. But it'll definitely be an open discussion with all the coaches before every game or after every practice or before every practice, and decisions will be made on what we can try and what our ideas are. I'm not going to be necessarily the guy who says it's this way or no way, but there has to be an open line of communication on a regular basis.
Yeah. So would you take input from up above? If it came from me or it came from, even higher than me, would you be willing to alter the lineup in that instance, or are you going to be, this is my lineup and that's the way I go?
Well, I feel like I said before, we need to create a team culture. So I think if I'm hired, that has to be a meeting between myself, the general manager, the owner, and possibly the coaching staff at some point, and discuss, including the AHL coaches, discuss what we're striving for. Because I always feel like I've referenced the Bobby Cox analogy, where we need to bring in players when needed because of injuries or whatever the situation is that have to seamlessly fit into a lineup. They shouldn't be learning a man-to-man defense within one practice or on a chalkboard. So that system needs to be played at least to the AHL level, and everybody should be on that same page. And as far as personnel, I feel that the general manager and coaches should be on the same page come draft day and trade deadline to make correct personnel decisions to get the right guys to fit into our system. So
All right.
I'd love to have that open communication on a regular basis with the GM. Also, if the owner would like to be involved, that's fine with me too. He owns the team. He's definitely going to have a decision at some point.
Yeah. So if the owner says, coach, you're hired, you got to play Keandre with Fox 20 plus minutes a night. You okay with that, or are you going to push back?
No, that's not going to be, that can't be the way the team is run. It has to be on a coach's perspective. Like I said, between the coaches, the GM have a handle on the team, unless it's an owner that's at every game, involved with the team in the locker room, at practices. If it's that kind of owner, maybe you can have a discussion with him, but any owner has to give the coaches his chance to coach.
Yeah. I'm with you there. Everyone's got to do their role. All right. So on the spot right now, we run the same D back, Keandre, Fox, Susi, Borgen, Schneider, Jones, Vakanainen. What are your 6 pairs? What are your 60, your 3 pairs? What are you doing?
Well, I really like the way Foxy was playing. Don't forget you got the kid Robertson also in the back end. I thought he played a couple of good games. I know Pete fans are on him a lot.
He's a big boy.
There wasn't a lot of pressure because of the Rangers were out of it. So yeah, that does take a little bit off it. But I watched him the 2 or 3 games he was in, and I thought he played a very stable game. So I wouldn't discount him being in the lineup. He played well with Fox. I didn't see much out of Keandre with Fox, so I don't know what I would do as far as that goes. I might be more inclined to play Schneider, which I've talked about a lot with some personnel. I want to give Schneider that chance to have that stable. He's been in the back burner a couple of years now, 3 years. And if he comes back from this injury strong, I can't see not giving Schneider a chance of playing up with Foxy.
Yeah, I agree. I love that kid. We drafted him, and I wouldn't include him in a few trades throughout, for some really good players. So I'd love to see him get more of an opportunity. I'm glad you identify that. But so if you put Schneider with Fox, what else would you do? And also, look, obviously, I know you need to have a training camp and assess people, but just generally right now, if you had to make the call, what would you do?
I would probably go Fox, Schneider. I'd go Keandre with either Susi or Borgen, and then Vakanainen on the back end with Susi or Jones. Maybe Robertson, depending on the camp, or depending on what moves you make in the off season.
But do you think that a
Those
move
would
needs
be
to
my.
be made on? Do you think a move needs to be made on the back end?
I don't know if Keandre earned that kind of money, to be honest with you. I'm not in your position, but the market shows that he probably can get a very good salary. He had a stretch of about 10 or 12 games that I thought he was really coming along, and then he disappears again. And Kreider has that reputation as well of being a little inconsistent, but when you're a defenseman, it's a lot more magnified, and we can't really afford that around the net. We need to start from the goal out, and that's got to be very strong. So
Well, from
again, that remains to be seen.
from the goal coach, you'd agree we're good there. I mean, with Quickie and Shesterkin.
Very stable. You can't ask for much more of a better pair than that right now. With the right team in front of them and the right system, it should be that's the least of our worries.
So I'm not going to get into the contract conversations I've had with Keandre's agent or whatever, but that's up in the air right now. I'll just say that, and obviously that stays in this room. So we'll see what it looks like in training camp. But I want to talk leadership with you. You're coaching at the college level right now. I'm assuming you have leaders on that team. Not like travel hockey, minor league hockey. This is college level, right? So let's talk leadership. There's been big issues in our room. Without getting into specifics, I'm not going to reveal that here in the interview. You'll learn more if you get the job. I'm sure you've seen the news and heard the rumors. So, you step in, we hire you as coach as opposed to Sullivan, who obviously, I love Sullivan, right? So, I mean, you'd really have to impress me here to get it over him. But do you come in, do you name a captain? Or do you go a year without a captain? Where do you go with that? Do you think that's important?
I think it's very important. I think from the get-go before training camp, that has to happen in the middle of the summer, right after the draft happens, because the captain and assistant captain should take care of meeting up with the rookies before training camp, getting them acclimated to the practice facility and bringing them into the team where they're feeling more comfortable, to make them at ease. And they have to control that room. They have to make everybody feel the same way as far as the rookies coming in, that everybody's got to compete for a job and make everybody work hard and, keep the competition fun and make that culture we're talking about.
So how would you go about picking a captain if it's in the summer? I mean, obviously getting all the players together be difficult. They're all over the place. I'm sure you know that. They're on vacation, they're working out, they're back home, whatever. You want to pick a captain over the summer. Is this something you want to pick? Is this something you'd let the players pick? Is there a certain group of players you'd let pick it? How would you do that?
Well, I would probably confer with you because you've been around the team for the last 6 or 7 years right now.
Well, I picked Trouba, and look how that ended up. So,
well, Trouba was a very good captain. I'm not going to say that he was a bad captain. As far as being a captain, I thought he did the right things a lot. He brought the team together in a few ways when they made the playoff run a couple of years ago. But I would probably have in-person meetings with whoever we could individually, and probably Zoom meetings with every other individual, asking them certain questions that couldn't make it if they were training. If they're not training hard with a commitment to somewhere, then they would have to get to New York and have an interview with the team, with the coaching staff. And again, that'll show commitment. That'll show a culture where they're not able to go about their business. Their commitment should be to the team. They're getting paid a lot of money, most of them.
If I said to you right now, pick a captain and 3 assistants, that's it. Who are you picking?
Most likely, depending on captain, I would say JT Miller, Trocheck. I would say if Kreider stays, I would like having Kreider, and I would go with Fox.
So JT Miller is captain with Trocheck, Fox, and Kreider?
Yes.
I mean, let's talk about Kreider, right? I mean, the guy's been a Ranger for 13 years. Obviously, you see the rumors. They don't come out of nowhere. How would you feel if you're hired and subsequent to that, I move a guy like Kreider in a trade? Number one, how would you feel about that? And number two, how would you handle the room? That obviously is going to create some ripples in the room.
Well, that's again, most other teams in the league have been through this. Not most, probably every team, including championship teams. It has to be a given. Of course, you develop relationships, just like coaches develop relationships and they get fired or they have to go to another team. They choose. It's got to be a place where, again, when open lines of communication are there, you speak with players, you know what's going on. The team knows what's going on. They hear rumors, but you have to have meetings when those kind of issues come up, and you have to make everybody understand that the common goal is to develop a team that's going to be able to compete and win a championship. You have to have everybody pulling on the same rope.
Is the cowboy hat, is that like a gimmick, or do you actually wear that during the games? How does that work?
That's going to be worn on the bench. I hate to tell you, it comes with me.
Okay, it comes with you. So there's no, if owner says, "Hey, no cowboy hat," like you're not taking the job.
I'll take the job without a cowboy hat.
So you take it without the cowboy. Okay. I mean, I don't know how he's gonna feel about it. I don't care. But I mean the cowboy hat thing, you show up to the interview in a cowboy hat, it's a little are you an actual cowboy or you just like the hat?
I'm just an old fashioned down to earth guy. I wore it during a game, not as a goof. I've always had cowboy hats that I've worn. I wore it as kind of a goof during a game, and one parent said to me, "You look great. You got to stick with it." We won the game, and from then on, I just stuck with it. Changed it a few times, but it's always a staple. Coaches around the league, referees around the league, they all know who I am. It just creates a personality.
Yeah, I mean when we did our research, I noticed that you were always wearing the hat. So I wasn't sure if it was a gimmick or if that's like an actual part of your personality. If you're out there, as an actual cowboy, I'm not
Well,
sure.
back in the
So
day, back in the early 30s and 40s, a lot of guys, baseball, football coaches, not baseball coaches, but football coaches, hockey coaches, they wore the fedora.
the third, like 1930s and 1940s, you're talking about?
Well, I'm not alive that long, but yes.
Would you consider a fedora over a cowboy hat? Is that something you'd be open to?
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
All right, all right. Um, so I want to talk about like your interaction with the GM a little bit. You mentioned before what you like open lines of communication. So what if there's a situation where I want to move a guy or acquire a guy, and I think this player deserves top 6 minutes or power play time, and it's a young guy or a skilled guy, whatever, and you don't really agree, based on what you're seeing or in his game, either day to day in practice or on during the games. Um, how would you handle that? Is that something, because look, the way I'll just be open with you, the way I operate is I hire a coach, I let the coach make the lineups. Obviously, I talk to you. I'm not going to tell you to scratch someone or not. How would you approach that if I go out and acquire a guy like, say, Pavel Bushnevich, for example, and I want you to play him on the top line and power play, and you don't agree? Would you just scratch him? Would you call me? How would you handle that communication?
I would hope that before you acquire any players, you're gonna call me. We'll have a meeting. We'll discuss personnel decisions, what we need, what the team needs, what's working, and if that player would fit into our lineup, into our system. I would hope that it's a mutual communication that we're going to talk to each other, and you're not just going to make decisions based on what you feel we need.
Well, I make
Because
decisions based on what's best for the organization, right? As you can see from the prior coaches' shelf life in the NHL isn't very long usually. So I got to make decisions that will potentially outlast whatever coaching hire I make. So we may not agree on a decision. My question is, if I'm obviously going to call you and tell you what I'm thinking, but if I agree this guy's a long-term fit for this organization, and you don't agree, and I say, I want to try it, are you open to that? Is that something you're open to, or are you just going to put your foot down? Because we have to get along in order for this to work, right?
well, how long is that? How long does the trial have to last?
I don't know. We give it 5-10 games. See if
Period.
you're a couple shifts. Let's see. Um,
Look,
let's
again,
see if
it has to be an open line of communication and discussion. If the team is moving well and we're in the right direction, then I don't feel it should be we should disrupt anything. That's one thing. If we feel it's a player that can come in and help our team immediately, seamlessly. Again, I look back to other teams. John Cooper has players that come and go, and if they get the right players with the right attitude and right compete level and right skill for certain situations, they fit in seamlessly, and that's why Tampa's been successful for the last 8 or 10 years. No matter
well,
what move they make.
you know that as the GM, I do get the final say in what personnel you deploy. I mean, so at the end of the day, if we disagree, I can make that decision.
Of
So
course you can, but that's not going to bode well for the culture of the team and any kind of animosities we start developing, that's just going to create rifts in the locker room, create rifts amongst players. So I would hope that you have that ability to figure out certain decisions together.
All right. So should I sign Keandre or should I trade him?
I would sign him, but I wouldn't give him any kind of an astronomical money. I would go no more than 3 years. I would go no more than like $3.5 million a year. But he's got to earn some more.
Well, he just made 3.8, so he's not going to take a pay cut.
Well, then I give him 3.85.
I think he made 3.
I don't think he's played well enough. I don't think he's played well enough to deserve a large raise.
Don't worry about the numbers. I'll worry about the cap. You know, don't worry. He made 3.875 or whatever. He's not going to take a pay cut. But you're saying that you'd give him more time as the coach. You'd be willing to give him more time in a different defensive system, couple years.
I would give him to this trade deadline. He's already had 3 to 4 years right now in the NHL playing with some high-level defensemen. I think it's time for him to take a step to the next level. If we can't help him do that, or if he's not responding to the coaching, then I would say it's time for him to find a new environment.
Do you think you could unlock that in him?
I'm going to give him enough time. I'm going to give him a pat on the back when he deserves it, but he's going to know when he's making mistakes over and over.
All right. So, look, I want to go back. You said you'd make JT the captain, and you'd go Trocheck, Fox, and who's your other assistant?
Kreider, if he's around.
So, right now we have Mika and Panarin as assistant captains. So, if you were to do that, we'd have to strip them of a letter. How would you handle that in the room? I mean, would you talk to them beforehand? I don't know. What would you do?
100%. Each player has to know what's coming. They have to know what's going on. It shouldn't be. They shouldn't find out through the media or social media. It should come from one of us first, or if not both.
Well, this interview leaked before it happened, so I mean, here we are, right? So everything leaks.
We got to find that guy who's leaking information, and we got to stop that first. Everything should stay within the organization. So
I hear this podcast. This guy Little Ed keeps leaking things out on Instagram. So I don't know. I'll have to check that out. But it's tough, right? I mean,
I would sit down those two players and say the team is moving in a different leadership direction. We still need them to be successful. We need them in the locker room. Any veteran player needs to act like he's a captain or assistant captain, no matter what. So they should, buy into the system. And if they don't want to, and if they're going to pout, then that's going to be up to you to get them to where they need to be, as far as on our team or somewhere else. Because we need to create that culture that everybody is going in the same direction, not two players going their own way. Well, everybody needs to play a game.
A lot of players this year have been pouting on this team. It's been an issue all season. I've been trying to maneuver through that. I don't blame Laviolette for it, but as whoever is the next coach is really going to have to do some extra work that I guess a normal situation a coach wouldn't have to deal with. Which brings me to my next question. So you're coming in. This would be your first job in the NHL. In your mind, what is the number one characteristic, and it can be general or specific, it's up to you, that a team needs to win the Stanley Cup?
The number one characteristic, as far as playing, or
it's up to you, Coach. You answer the
needs
question.
To be a defense first characteristic. That's got to be, and even a player like Panarin, I don't expect him to be blocking shots, but I expect him to be busting his ass on the back check somewhat to cover his own. And every player needs to do that. It needs to be a total commitment to the system, not 15 out of 18 skaters, not 14 out of 18. It needs to be every player. Every successful team in the playoffs has every player pulling together, diving in front of pucks for some guys, back checking for other guys, skating hard through the neutral zone, getting off on a line change. every little thing means something, and everybody has to commit to those little things.
Do you think this team has that?
I think we have a good core on this team. I think we have a very good core that we could turn this around with the right mental attitude if we can get the guys together and have some fun.
You
and
know, Peter
create.
said the same thing. Gallant said the same thing. You sure?
I think we have a good core of guys. I think we have a good core of guys, and they have to know it's either put up or shut up time. And we need to, like I said, create that culture from the AHL up and have the next man up mentality. If you're not going to do it, we're going to bring in the next guy. We have a lot of young talent available, and they have to know they're going to sit on the bench. They all have to be held accountable no matter who it is.
Would you be willing to hold a guy like Artemi accountable if he's
100%.
not back checking or too lackadaisical on the ice? Would you scratch him or bench him?
I would have conversations with him from training camp forward, and I would make it clear what we need from him and what we need to do to win. Create some visual examples of, say, Alexander Ovechkin, the commitment level Malkin has, the commitment level Crosby has at this time of their career, and what it takes to win. And he needs to see that. And if he doesn't produce, then that's going to have a meeting between me and you, and we're going to see what we're going to do about that.
Well, he's got a no move clause, so there's not much I can do about it. But
Well,
he's got only 1 year left, coach.
And he'll be we can't let a player like him get away with things and expect rookies to push themselves to the limit and not be held accountable when they have to be held accountable. It's like raising children.
I agree there. So that brings me up to another issue I was going to bring up with you.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I'm not afraid of it.
Okay. Well, do you believe that certain young players need to be thrust into some prominent roles on the roster quickly, even if they haven't earned it at the NHL level? Or do you think that everybody has to earn it by coming up, do fourth line, third line, second line, progress that way? Or some guys like maybe a Gabe Perreault, you see him as like he comes in, he's top six power play, and he doesn't have to deal with the block shots, third line mentality?
Well, then what are we going to do? My question to you is we have to sit down and say, who are we moving down to that bottom six role, or what are we going to do? Because you're going to have to deal with the attitude of the player we move down. So everything has to be a team effort from the owner down.
Well, it's your job to do that, right?
Well, it is my job to say we need to do this, but I have to go to you and we have to say, I'm moving Perreault to the second line. Lafreniere is going to be down to the third line. Be prepared. There's going to be some complaining, but we need to be on the same page where you can't say to him, well, that's the coach's decision. I have no part of it. You have to say to him, we want to see this young talent. I need you to push it to third line, and we need to be on the same page. And that's how you're going to create that culture I'm talking about.
Well, do you agree that certain players, you develop them for those top line roles versus bottom six roles? Maybe a guy, I look at like an Adam Edstrom, prototypical bottom six player. Love the kid, but no problem with him coming up 22, 23, playing on the fourth line, but maybe I wouldn't really want an Offman to play in that role.
Well, it's hard to do that when you don't have the spot to do it. If we already have established top six, we have to move somebody out to give that kid a chance. So that either gives him more time to develop in a top six role at the AHL level with the Wolfpack, or we're going to have to move someone out and deal with that personnel, deal with that kind of a character issue, how they're going to respond. So it's got to be a situation where it goes player by player and the timing has to be right. See how it is in training camp. We have to establish that everybody's fighting for that spot in training camp. So if Lafreniere comes in and has a bad training camp, then he'll be the one to be moved down to the third line. No problem with that. If Perreault comes in and has a fantastic training camp and he's lighting it up, then we give him a shot on the second line or the second power play or whatever. It all has to be earned at some point, in my opinion.
Well, it definitely has to be earned. I agree there. But yeah, there's some players that, when Alexei was drafted and brought in, he played a lot of third line minutes. He still really hasn't established himself on the power play. I think this is going to be year 6 or 7 for him. And in the NHL. He's the number 1 overall pick. So we just don't want to make those same mistakes again going forward. You know, there's certain young guys that we want the next coach to give an opportunity. You know, if Perreault makes some mistakes, are you going to just bury him on the bench with 5 minutes to go?
It depends on how often he's making those mistakes. If he makes a mistake here and there, everybody does that. But if he can't chip the puck off the wall 3 times in a row, then no, he's not going to be in the last 5 minutes of the game when we need it. If it happens once or twice a game, it's going to happen to everybody. But if the same mistake is made over and over, then you have to earn that trust, not only from the coach, but from your teammates. Because you have 18, 17 other players on the bench going, why is he out there? He can't get the puck out of the zone. We need this game. It also depends on the situation in the standings we're at. Are we at a situation where we're fighting for first place, or are we fighting for 5th or 6th place? So you're allowed.
Yeah,
You can have more you can have more leniency if we're developing kids and we're in a 5th or 6th place position. But we have a core of guys that
this isn't San Jose, so you won't be doing that.
That's why we should be. You give them chances, but if they're not figuring it out or asking questions or working hard at it, then you have to make some decisions in game and in practice. That's a game by game situation.
All right, just a couple more questions for you, and we'll wrap this up. I know your time is valuable. So we got analytics team here. An analytics team. They're excellent. They really come out with the expected goals. Or the goaltending. Goals saved above expected, and we got all kinds of numbers running through here daily that are passed on to the coaching staff. Are you someone that's throwing that in the trash bin, or are you looking at it?
Again, just like I'm a hybrid type of defensive coach, I'm going to utilize some of that information, take it into account, but I'm not going to live and die by it. The goals that saved above expected tells me that if it's a high number, that we're letting up too many grade A chances. So that's telling me we're not playing tight enough defense. If I have a goalie that's facing 18 of those a game and he's doing really well at it, that's great. But that's a leak in the system, and that's only going to fail. You're only going to sink the boat after a while. So that's a situation where I'm going to take that stat, and I'm not going to so much praise the goalie because he's number 1 in the league or top 5 in the league, but I'm going to say to the team, we need to right the ship, and we need to figure things out because we're letting up way too many of that. Most of the stats I'm going to look at analytic-wise is getting pucks out of the zone, defensive first passes out of the zone into the breakout, who's dumping the puck in at certain times of the game when we need it, who's making too many lateral passes and giveaways, and that's going to be an eye test along with analytics.
Well, when it comes to zone exits and zone entries, we got one of the best in the game with Fox, so that'll be interesting. So do you think Fox, being how good he is, I was with Team USA at the 4 Nations. Sullivan was there, Tortorella. We talked about Fox a little bit. He got demoted during that tournament. Do you think he can be a number 1 D for this team that wins the Stanley Cup, or do you think we need to consider, his no move clause kicks in July 1st, so this is a decision we got to make soon on him.
I mean, unless you're getting a very high level defenseman or Connor McDavid, he could definitely be a defenseman that could win it with us if he has the right partner.
So he needs a partner. What kind of partner would you want?
I like Schneider. I like a physical player. Like I said, he took a little bit off this year, Schneider, but we've heard that he's had some shoulder problems. He's had surgery. If he comes back 100% healthy and we have a physical D back there where Fox doesn't have to go battle in corners as much or take a beating as much, we're going to need a player, and I think Schneider has that attitude to accept that role and take that beating for the good of the cause.
So how do you get these players to play more north-south? Because, Quinn tried it, Gallant tried it, Labby tried it, and it works for a few games, and then they just don't do it. So what would you do if this is the group and I don't make any moves? What are you going to do to make them play north-south?
They're going to have to be benched at a certain point in certain situations in the game. It's just that simple. There's nothing else you can do. If you can't trade him or sell him off or whatever the case is, they're going to lose playing time, and maybe they'll come to you and say, trade me. I'm not, this team isn't for me. They have to know it's our culture or nothing. And that has to come from you, me, and the coaching staff. And it has to stick to it. If you want to create that I don't want to say dynasty as far as winning championships, but being competitive year after year with a chance of winning championships, then you have to create that culture. Every successful team has the right playoff mentality. If you don't, you're knocked out of the playoffs. You see with Toronto, they're not strong defensively. They haven't won a series in how many years?
Well, we agree. We got to be stronger defensively. We need a new system here.
And part of that defensive system comes from puck possession in the other zone. So if those turnovers in the neutral zone are causing our defense, again, if you want to go by analytics, talk about turnovers in the neutral zone, that reflect on how much zone time is in our defensive zone. And then you have to show the team that. Look what happened here. Yeah, so on and so forth. It's got to happen. They have to get a visual of it, and they have to buy in. Again, Alexander Ovechkin bought in, and they won. If you don't buy in, if the team doesn't buy in, no matter how good you are, you're not going to be successful.
All right, so we'll just end on this question. What identity would you want this team to have? Every team needs an identity. So what would be the identity you try to instill if you had to summarize it without being wordy?
I want to play 60-minute games from the drop of the puck to the end of the game as hard as we can, roll 4 lines pretty much in certain situations, and I want every player to be playing everything they got for every shift. That's got to be when a coach comes in and say we're playing the Rangers, I want them to say to their team, guys, you know what we're in for. We need to work hard. They're going to be busting their ass. We need to work as hard or harder. They have to have that mentality that they're coming in to play the Rangers. It's going to be a challenge.
Well, Coach, you did a great job in this interview. Appreciate it. We'll get back to you soon. We're going to consider all options here, and we'll go from there. I mean, we got some good candidates out there. I don't want you to get your hopes up, but we got your resume on the Indeed.com posts. It came in, and there were some spelling errors, and the font. It looked kind of informal, which I like personally, because it shows that you're an old school guy. It looked like it might have been typed by a child, but good resume, and it was a pleasure speaking with you, and we'll get back to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, we'll get back to you. See you, Coach.
Have a good night.
Amazing.
Coach
Guys,
Ed
that was
for Rangers
unbelievable.
coach. Coach Ed for Rangers coach.
I have a question. I'm assuming I'll be your assistant defensive coach. Are we concerned with Schneider and Fox?
He might want Tortorella.
After that interview, he sounds pretty cutthroat, so I might be out. Me and Coach Skank might be out of a job. Are we at all concerned with Schneider and Fox both being righties?
I think Schneider's proven he played the opposite side. I think he can handle it, and I'm not overly concerned with that. No. Certain players I know have a lot of trouble, but Schneider I very rarely see in a game that he has a difficult move on his backhand, or he needs to turn his whole body. I think he's confident, and he'll work at it. If we tell him in the summer that we want him to work at it, he'll be ready for training camp.
All right. PJ, you got one before we hit the chat?
Yeah. Hold on. I was going to say, should I be your goalie coach? But I think what would you, how would you handle?
You could be my goalie coordinator.
I love it. So obviously we saw that the Rangers deal with that horrendous stretch where they went 4-15. How do you stop a spiral like that from happening when things are going in the wrong direction?
Well, it depends. You have to have a feel for the team in practice. The few practices we'll have with the busy schedule, you need to have maybe a team dinner or some kind of a team building effort to get the guys a little more off the pressure, and that's up to the leadership group, and that's up to the coaches to say to the leadership group, we need to figure this out. What do we need to do? Get a feel for the room. And again, keep those lines of communication open on a regular basis. There should be no secrets from where the coaches are coming from, where the GM, where the owner. It's all one common goal, and that's to win a championship, and it has to happen together.
I feel like Coach was just so good in that interview that I didn't really get a lot of like comedic moments. I was expecting, some more I set you up with the Keandre stuff, and you really you answered it well. Like you answered it like a legit candidate would answer it.
I love that.
Cousin Ed you're done with the stuff in the nursery?
No, not yet. No.
Oh, okay. Well, you decided to join us.
Yeah.
So
that's right. Oh yeah. I just wore.
You missed a hell of an interview.
I missed the interview. Yeah. Was it good?
Fantastic. Like you said, took it very serious.
He did. He took it so. I set you up. So I had to inject the hat jokes, but just I heard that at least. I wasn't doing it.
Well, I thought you wanted it to be serious.
I did, but I'm just shocked. I'm actually impressed with how well you did in that interview. You did a really good job.
I was fired up some of the responses too.
You're right.
Oh,
yeah, you're right about all.
We'll post it. We'll see what happens. We've been getting good analytics thanks to PJ on YouTube and TikTok. Instagram sucks.
I'll tell you what. I'm just gonna send the footage right through that LinkedIn, application they have.
Dude,
right. What do we have to lose?
You never know, dude. You never know.
Send can't score if you don't shoot.
Kathy said to me today, she goes, "Why can't you get the job? You've been doing it a long
time." So, do we have any?
Cousin Anthony's probably watching now. Cousin Anthony calls me at 4:30. He goes, "What's going on here? Are you really getting interviewed for the job?"
No,
Aaron texted me on the side. Our very smart PA family member texted me on the side. Wait, so is Dad really getting interviewed for the coaching job?
Unbelievable.
That's fantastic.
No, I'm confused. Is Dad really interviewing with them?
So good. So good.
Yeah, we do have a couple fan questions to go. Yeah. First one was from Paul. I'll put it up on here. How much playing time do you see Quick getting next season, Coach?
Yeah, it's a good one because obviously Shesterkin or any starting goalie over in the NHL is always questioned with the workload. So what would you say to that?
And 11.5 mil he's getting paid. Keep that in mind.
On that too.
Well, I'm looking at the stat I heard the other night. Vasilevsky played 63 games. I would like to see Shesterkin be up near that 60-game mark. Depending, hopefully he doesn't come through with any injuries, but I would say I would expect him to play
61 this year, Coach.
Okay, so that's a fair number.
Yeah.
In this league, I'm not taking away from the goalies. I know Brodeur played a lot of games. Hank wanted to play every game, but with the speed of the game and how fast it's gotten and the pressure on these guys' bodies, I would say 60 games is a pretty good number.
Yeah, if Brodeur was getting down the butterfly every game, he would not have played as much. I don't think.
Brodeur was phenomenal, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't playing against guys with the skill that he is now.
No, I'm saying like that, like playing style, you and I talk about it, like that movement for a goalie, or like your knees aren't meant to do that.
Well, PJ Quagmire's over every goalie, and Brodeur's on arrival. So I'm very curious what PJ's opinion of Brodeur is. I don't think we've ever spoken about Brodeur.
I think he's very overrated.
I love it.
No, and that doesn't mean he's bad. That doesn't mean he's a bad goalie. I think he was behind the Hall of Fame defense. And he was facing 15 to 20 shots a game. He wasn't like any of these goalies now. Like, he never had to steal games for them. Like, he was just perfect for their system. He was good at playing the puck.
Hold on. Brodeur has the most games played all time for a goalie, most wins, most losses, most goals against, most shots against, most saves, most shutouts, and the most minutes played in NHL history, according to
Not
Hockey Reference.
not only that, he created the trapezoid. Because
Right.
of him, they created the trapezoid because he was phenomenally skilled with the stick, handling the puck.
Great
It was
point.
like having a third defenseman back there. So, you gauge greatness based on, on stuff like that, in my opinion.
And one of my favorite things was when Hank came to the Rangers. He owned the Devils in Brodeur. It just made me so happy.
Yes, it did.
Oh man.
Look,
And
I'm not saying I was
up there
never
with
critical
Brodeur.
of it.
He's up there.
I'm not saying I was never critical of it. He's definitely a product of a system, but so was Billy Smith. So was any goalie in any dynasty, any good team. So, if he didn't win, you would say he sucks, but he did win, and he did have all those wins.
Coach, doesn't it go back to the hockey's a team game? We talk about this with Igor.
100%.
Igor, Rangers get a lot of crap because Igor's so good. So when they do well, they're like, "Oh, it's Igor." And Igor's part of the team. Brodeur is part of those teams, and
I'm sure he made some phenomenal saves. I don't remember. I don't have that kind of memory, but I'm sure in his career he made quite a few saves that were part of a win or a championship win or a playoff win or whatever the case was.
What do we got? What else we got for Coach? Was there any more questions? I think there's a
we do more. From M Vitale 21. Let's put Coach back on the big screen here.
Oh boy.
M Vitale says, Coach Ed, how would you handle in-game decisions? Let's say top vets are struggling and the young kids are bringing it. Are you going to adjust ice time in-game and get those guys extra shifts?
Of course, it goes game by game. I said that. It's got to be, I've always told players from 8 years old up, some nights it's just not your night. When the puck's bouncing off your stick, make yourself good in another positive way during the game and let somebody else who's having a good night take care of it. Look at the game the other night. I think the Tampa game, the 2 fourth liners scored. The first line was shut out. I mean, they did screw it up at the end, but they had that game won by 2 fourth liners scoring. Some nights it's just not there because the other team is doing that to the first line. So, again, it's the next man up mentality. And if you don't have it that night, you're not getting extra minutes, in certain situations.
I love that. I asked you that question kind of, because we talk about the Rangers a lot with young guys not getting those top line minutes. This year, I think it was Will Cooley that a lot of fans were frustrated that he wasn't getting more ice time, and they felt he had earned it with his play this season. So I brought up Othman and Perreault. I didn't bring up Cooley. I probably should have, but Cooley, like, how many times? PJ, did the Rangers tie a game at 6-on-5 this year? I don't think so, right?
Mm-mm. They had, I think, 1 or 2, but it was when they were already down by 2
goals.
Yeah.
So, like, at some point, like, not to say the season is Laviolette's fault, but, like, you got to change that up, right? I mean, you got to put some young guys out there who are earning it in those situations when it's not working for 50 games, for example, like, right? I mean,
well, and I think that's what M Vitale was bringing up. There was those games, right, where like the young, like Cooley was dominating, or Berard even, or someone was playing with so much more energy. I think about that one game against against St. Louis, and instead of putting, and that's when like Mika was really struggling hard and Kreider was struggling hard, and they were just right back out there like they didn't have a bad game, and Cooley was just stapled to the bench.
Dude, somebody needs to send that interview to the Rangers, because who posted that? I'm on my phone, so I can't see, but Cousin Ed's going to send him to Hartford.
Yeah.
If
That's
That's
our buddy that submits the videos of cards for us for the jersey profile.
Oh, okay. I can't see the name because it's on my phone. But if Coach Ed goes to Hartford, that would be incredible.
I'll take Hartford.
Are you kidding me?
Coach, we're sending
Hartford could use it, honestly. They've been struggling hard, man.
Do you have a coaching resume drafted already? Because I made the joke at the end that it was written by a kid and stuff, and the fonts were off and all that, because I imagine that's what your resume looks like. But do you have a coaching resume?
Yes.
So video.
I'd have to dig it up somewhere.
Why do you think
Kathy probably has it on her computer.
If Coach actually took some time, I think he could draft up a pretty decent letter or something. He used to write his own speeches for Chaminade. He doesn't text like he could write, cuz.
No, that's fair. I gotten handwritten cards from him, and the penmanship is impeccable. So I will
See?
say that, but
He,
I don't imagine a typed document would look like formatted
well,
sufficiently for me.
we would have
so.
to we would have to transcribe his handwritten.
Exactly.
Look, it's like a team. It's like a team. You need a team of people on.
I would love. We got to send this in. We got to send this in, man.
Well, getting back to Will Cooley didn't play top 6 minutes this year. I thought
no, he didn't play 6-on-5. He didn't play PP1. He earned that, I mean, they kept going back to Kreider in those spots. Kreider wasn't performing, whether it be the injuries or they quit on the team or whatever narrative you want to go with. It doesn't matter. He didn't produce in those spots. So that's a lot of pressure on a coach to say, I'm not going to put Chris Kreider on the ice down a goal with a minute to go when any puck that goes near the net could easily be deflected into the net by him, right? So it's tough, but at some point you got to give other guys that chance. I mean, Little Ed's alluded to Cooley taking that spot if they move Kreider. He's alluded to that in episodes recently, so I think that's a narrative he's going to push. So, why not try that if it's been 50 games and it's not working?
And especially and the coach has to know that Kreider was injured if that was the case.
Right.
Well,
yeah, for sure.
Well, if that's hold on, I got a question for Coach then, if that's the case. For the power play, are you going heavy PP1 or do you prefer a more balanced 2 power plays?
I like a more balanced 2 power plays. I mean, I guess that would also be the situation if there's a hot hand, they might stay heavier with PP1. Like last year, they were very hot. They brought them into the playoffs and almost to the finals. But when you do that too often, then you're going to rely on it and other teams could shut it down. So you need to have that second strong unit for sure.
Yeah, I mean, to build off of that, I mean, if they do end up keeping Kreider, then they should just have Cooley in that position on PP2 while if Kreider's doing well, or it should be interchangeable realistically.
100%. I agree. They have enough talent to have 2 strong power plays, in my opinion.
It's without a doubt.
Dude, the problem with that is the top unit stays out. Oh, sorry.
Well,
no, I'm just cracking up. The comments are hilarious.
They are good tonight.
Well, that's part of the issue. That's part of the issue you deal with at every level of hockey is, again, I remember that quote that Steve DeBoer had about Robertson on Dallas. He said he does it without cheating. He doesn't stay out for more than a minute on the power play. He doesn't overdo his shift. You need to have that kind of a team unity and awareness. Guys like Panarin have to know my minute is up. Let me bust and get off. And if that's the case, what I generally do is if there's a whistle after 40 seconds, I'm going to make the change then. If you're not going to do it right, then I have to make the decision before it gets too late. So that's generally how you have to do it. It's not an easy thing to do, trust me, especially at that level. Crowds are going crazy. Shit's happening on the bench. It's not an easy thing to do, but with your coaching staff, it should be able to be done. Now and then you might miss 1 or 2 here, but it should be where the players know, let me make my move. I get my chance again. Oh, so on and so forth.
Did the listeners, did you notice I had this pin on? I'm not sure if you knew, but if you're on YouTube, you can see it. I put the pin on. I went official.
But I was going to say, speaking of the power play, sorry to cut you off, Cousin Ed. I wanted to throw in Vitali's comments since we were on the power play topic.
I was just going to say that.
She's brought the hammer with these questions. I love it. She says, let's say your team's power play suddenly drops off a cliff, maybe like 2 for 25. What's your game plan to make adjustments? How do you balance what worked in the past with trying new things?
That's oddly specific. I think it was actually like 4 for 45, but let's just go with 2 for 25.
It might have been that. So,
yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things there. It depends on when they're in that 2 for 25 situation, are they still getting opportunities? Are they snake bit, but they're getting the right plays? Things are happening correctly? Or are they just not even getting any zone time? There's 2 different negatives that you could look at. If they're getting the opportunities, you would hope that sooner or later the puck's going to go in the net. maybe you stick with it a little bit more than you would. But if it's just where they're not even getting zone time, they're not making the right zone entry plays, the right decisions, then you have to mix it up and try something else. That could be in game, or that could be in practice, or that could be game to game. It depends on the situation.
And I wanted to ask a clear issue this season was the starts. How many times, I think, I don't know what the final tally ended up being, 25 times they were down a goal within the first 5 minutes or 2 minutes. How do you get your team ready?
Again, that's the same situation. I'd have to analyze every one of those. Did it happen because we didn't get the puck deep right away? Did it happen because we're losing every opening faceoff and it's in our zone right away? There's certain situations I'd have to get analytics on that. Now, that's something where I would want analytics, and I would say analyze every one of these 25 first 1 minute goals and what happened. Were there any common denominators? What's going on? What are we doing wrong? That's where your analytics staff, to me, comes in a lot.
I love that he asked you about analytics, but you had a really good answer about it too. You didn't like deny.
I know he didn't give the coach that.
He didn't
give the coach that answer.
I came around a little bit. There's certain things I'm going to use, but I'm not going to stick to it.
I think it was a good answer.
Yeah,
it's not like bragging that your goalie is the best GSA or whatever is not necessarily a good thing. I think it was a good point.
It was a great answer you had.
It was.
I was not. I set you up on that to say analytics were BS, but you answered it very well, I thought.
Listen,
honestly.
shout out to our coach, our other assistant coach, my good friend Mike, Coach Skank. He does analytics for Coach, but only the ones that he wants. You just gotta give him what he asked for, nothing more, nothing less.
What are those?
Yeah, I don't know if I bought. I don't know if I actually, knowing you, actually believe a lot of your answers.
Wait, let's see if you guys can guess what stats he loves or wants to know.
Turnovers?
Well, he just said it. I mean,
what?
He wants zone entries, zone exits, right?
Zone exits is like getting pucks out of the zone or percentage of chips out of the zone.
Yeah, face
breakout percentage
is an analytic. That's just a regular stat.
Well, I'm saying I want to know face-offs. I want to know why the face-offs were won or lost. Is it because our center just is missing the puck, or is our 4 other players aren't doing their job? So once you see that the face-offs we're at 30%, okay, let's see why. Do we need to work on face-offs one-on-one, or do we need to know what our players are doing? Holding up the other team. So there's an analytic, and then there's why is that happening?
I'm gonna guess separating players from the puck, not just hits, but hits that actually separate players.
No, nothing that specific. I go more on how many times a wing touches the puck on a breakout and how many times it gets out of the zone.
So you want to see who can actually clear the zone.
I want to see what they're doing. If that one player needs to work on more things, what he's doing wrong.
Coach, in watching the playoffs this year, with fresh eyes and without the stress of the Rangers being in it, which sucks, but still, which still is fun. I notice a lot of young players really do struggle with that. I mean, you saw it in the Edmonton-LA game with Byfield. He couldn't clear the zone. Bouchard kept it in. Easy play to clear that zone there. And then it leads to a goal, and, LA loses that game, and now they're down in the series, So I got to say that's something I think young players transitioning to the NHL probably struggle with without actually analyzing it. I would say that's
I'm going to say they struggle with it like at every level. Now, they might have been really good at it at juniors. They might have been really good at it in college. Now the game, like you talk about in football, they talk about it all the time. It's just a whole nother level.
Yeah.
You have to catch up to that speed. You have to catch up to that playoff pressure.
I mean, a guy like Byfield, right? 6'6", whatever he is, he's probably used to, and he's been in the league a few years, same as Laff, right? So, I mean, he's probably still just used to being able to outmuscle guys or outskate guys out of the zone, where that's not the case at this level.
Now you're playing against guys who have that mentality that I was talking about, where they know what it takes to win in the playoffs. They have that compete level a little higher in the playoffs. You have to make that decision that much quicker and be willing to take the hit. There's a lot of variables involved, and who wants to do that? Those are look at Tampa. They let Yanni Gord go. 2 years later, he's back. They let McDonough go. He's back.
Yeah.
And they're successful. There's a certain kind of player that these teams look for, and they're going to take him back. There's a business decision they make, but if they can get him back, they get him back.
PJ, does San Jose have a retention spot next year?
I don't think so, because I think that was a whole thing at the deadline.
They have
about-
Hurdle, Carlson, and they had one more, but did it open? Because I would guess
I don't know if
back to
Pucpedia
Tampa
has
at
that,
some
but-
point. Like,
Yeah,
he's going back to Tampa at some point, right?
I was gonna say they'll bring him back here.
No, not with Drury as the GM.
Yeah, not with Drury there. But I was going to say, yeah, zone exits was a huge thing on the Rangers. They just are terrible at breakouts. That's one thing.
And we talked about that, right, on Coach's Corner.
We did.
That a lot of it was the forwards not supporting the puck.
Yeah, they basically
not necessarily the D being bad at it.
They fly the zone, so they don't give the D much outlet. Like, and am I right? In Pee Wee regular hockey, the center comes low, the wings go to the boards, and give the D an outlet. Like it's 1-2 pass, depending on who's open, and should all skate out together.
It's the same thing at the pro level. It's the same thing. You watch them in the pros; they're doing the same breakout. You know, the wings on the wall, strong side. The center comes down low. He's an outlet.
All you got to do is watch the warm up.
Yeah, they go D to D or up the wall. You can't change much when it comes to that, other than like just sending it up in the air, the alley-oop.
I was about to say, you see that all the time.
But it doesn't work.
Well, that's
it
more
works
of a desperation.
it works 1 out of 50 times, you know, in the NHL level especially.
Let me ask you another question I should have asked you during the interview. What the hell can the next coach do to unlock Alexis Lafreniere? Because we saw Lafreniere break out the year before with 57 points with no PP time, no power play time, right? I guess now that I'm having a baby, PP time probably means something different than hockey related, but no power play time, right? And no playoffs. Like, I don't want to say dominated, but some really skilled, dynamic plays against Florida in the Eastern Conference Finals. Physical, engaged. Did not see that player this year. I know a lot of fans have the narrative, he got paid and disappeared, but I don't think that's the case. But, what can the next coach do to really unlock this kid, man, and get him back to that pace? Is it trusting him? Is it making him part of the leadership? I have no idea, honestly.
I mean, it comes down to like, you just got to pump him up. You got to, in practices, you got to get one-on-one with him, talk to him for a minute. Every practice, when there's a good play, go to the bench. I try to do that a lot. Go to the bench and say, that was a really good play there. That was nice. We need you to do that more, that up the wall, whatever. You need to pump them up. You need to build their confidence. You need the other players to do that. And I'm going to stand by the fact that I'm sorry. I'm going to keep harping on it. Panarin brings him down. The laziness, the way whether Panarin's lazy or not is a different question. He looks lazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether he is or not, I'm sure coaches will say his compete level's phenomenal. His skill level, well, he looks lazy. The body language is lazy. Boyle says it. Boyle and Valaket said it all year. So if they're saying it, they're seeing it. So if Laffy's seeing it and he's not getting punished for not doing, how are you going to punish Laffy for doing it? And Panarin's, and then he's going to, then he's going to create this aura that he's pissed off that, it's a whole culture. We've been saying it for 3 years.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. So I'm glad I stopped talking, because that's exactly right. It's not that, Laffy is watching Panarin and copying him. It's that Panarin is doing these things and not getting punished no matter what, because he puts, like I always say, he farts out points. So you put him out there, and then you can't really bench Laffy for doing the same things that Panarin does. Even though Laffy's not farting those points out, you can't really do that because it creates a culture of unfairness, right? It's a whole culture thing. It totally is. And look, I don't know. I mean, Panarin bought in under Torts. Do you think he could buy in under a guy like Sullivan? You think he'll buy in?
I don't know. I didn't pay that close attention. You're gonna have to ride it out, obviously, but I don't know if you sign him again if this is the situation.
And Malkin did. That's
He's got a
good
year
sign.
to prove. He's got a year to prove. He's got a year to prove it. Let's see what he does in his contract year. I guess if that's the case.
It's really going to be something hovering over this team going into next year. Does Panarin resign, and what's that number? Because next year, right now at least, Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel are UFA. So you don't want to lock Panarin up until you kind of know if those guys are staying put, right? I mean, that's kind of that's money that could be reallocated differently. So you got to see what happens with those two players, I think, before you worry about Panarin.
You got to come into this season, like I said.
And Kaprizov is free agent.
Me personally, I think McDavid's kind of not going to happen. I don't really know the intricacies of it.
Please let McDavid leave Edmonton. I'm rooting for LA just so McDavid leaves Edmonton.
Oh boy, did LA
LA
drop the freaking ball in this series. My God.
You watch Kaprizov play. You watching him in the playoffs?
He's a beast.
You talk about a guy carrying a line. Boldy's very good.
Boldy's good too. Yeah.
Kaprizov reminds me of Panarin, just younger. You know, it's the same player.
Not only, but he fights for pucks. I mean, he gets in there.
He's good.
He's a really good player.
He was probably the MVP of the league before he got hurt. Like 30, 35 games into the season, Kaprizov was ungodly to start the season.
Somebody's gonna pay Mitch Marner this year like 13, 14 mil, and then Kaprizov, McDavid, and Eichel are gonna be just way over that. I mean, those guys are on another level. Those guys are on another level. So we'll see. I think
me personally, I'm not going for Marner.
No.
I go for Kaprizov or McDavid. Those guys will go through a wall to win a game.
Well, I think you got to wait and see, Coach. You got to wait and see because those teams are going to want to keep those players. So we'll wait and see. We'll cover that a little bit during the offseason. But, yeah, I think Laffy is kind of look, it's twofold, right? Laffy, on the one hand, I agree he's kind of copying Panarin in that sense or being affected by Panarin, whatever you want to call it. On the other hand, he's going to be 24. He's got to take control of his own career. You know,
100%.
like he's got to he's got to be his own player. He can't do that either. So it's kind of like both dual blame. But the next coach has got to unlock Lafreniere for the Rangers to take the next step. I mean,
well, first of all, if it's me, I go to Panarin first, and I say, look, you got to stop this because the younger guys are just watching it. It's just not working.
And when he says, okay, and then it doesn't stop it,
then you got to bench him. You have to.
Yeah,
you're hurting these guys. You talk about developing young players. That's where it's got to start.
It's crazy.
I don't know why I did this to myself, but I watched the highlights of last year's playoffs. I watched every game, like
I can't do it.
I don't know why I did it. I just needed to watch. And Lafreniere.
PJ, I don't want to hear that you don't have time to do anything. That's it. I don't want to hear it.
I didn't watch it all in one night, but I watched. But Lafreniere, what a different player he was. My God, he was just he was creating stuff on his own. I mean, he was all over the puck. He was a beast.
It's just so disappointing, you know. It's like it's so disappointing, man. It's really difficult as a fan because I love that team. Last year, it was such a fun team to root for, and there were so many good things that happened, the comebacks, the players developing. And then this year was just so bad. And, you know, it's really important the next coach, whether it be you, Coach Ed, or Mike Sullivan, or Tortorella, or whoever the hell it is, it's really important that the next coach can quiet that and really just get this team back focused and say, I don't even care if the next coach, you know, comes in and is like, you know what, like F Drury, you know, screw him. Like, let him do what we're here. This is our family. Like he's up there with the owner. We're down here on the ice, you know, like, I don't even care if they create that mindset. It's got to be a family again. Something has to work, you know. I don't know.
It should have been like that this year. I just
don't know. I don't know I don't know, Coach. You talked a lot about like there needs to be a culture and a family, and we got to be involved with each other. I feel like Drury just clashes with all these coaches and players. Like, I don't know if that can actually happen with him at the helm. And that's why I was so surprised by his extension. I made that video about the Bushnevich hat trick. I saw a lot of listeners commenting on that, get over it and stuff like that. But, like, yeah, okay, fine. It's not the point. The point is this is the guy, like, that we extended for. He's not doing a good job of creating that culture, whether it be with the coach or the players. So
Well,
I don't know if that's possible.
Personally, I can't see Sullivan just listening to everything Drury says. He looks like a guy that's going to just butt heads if he has to.
I think he wanted some control in Pittsburgh. I'm sure he's probably going to want that here. Like,
but he also had to deal with handling Malkin and Crosby as far as superstars. So maybe he is. I don't know if Laviolette has handled players of that caliber. Really, who do you have? Eric Stahl.
Ovechkin.
What?
Brindamore.
I mean, Brindamore was a good player, but he wasn't a superstar type. And that guy went through a wall for you. He was easy.
Ovechkin.
You know what I'm saying? And he wasn't. They didn't win with Laviolette.
Yeah, the teams that got to the final with were the Flyers and Nashville. The Flyers kind of like a misfit team at that point. No one expect. I mean, remember they beat the Rangers the last game of the season, and they were the 8th seed and got all the way.
Who did Nashville have?
PK
Subban.
Yes, Subban was on that team. Pecorine. I think Forsberg was a young rookie then, or something.
I think they had Duchesne.
No, they didn't.
I don't think they had him
on Colorado at that point.
Was he?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
But anyway, I think
Shea Weber, I guess you could say, was
a guy like John Cooper. They last that long because they can handle those personalities like Joe Torre. They can handle those superstar personalities and manage them the right way.
We don't have Malkin and Crosby though. We have Panarin and Zibanejad.
All right, you have Panarin. Panarin's a 120-point player. He's up there with that kind of a caliber of a player.
I wouldn't call him that because he did it once, but okay. Like,
all right, he's a super. You've been bragging he's a superstar in the league for the last 5 years.
I think he's a star player for sure. I'm not going to get into.
You still have to manage.
But he's not a 120-point player, but he's a star player.
Did he get 120 points?
One time, yes.
All right, then he's a 120-point player.
He would have got close his first year with the Rangers if not for the COVID. He was at 95, and he had 60-some games.
Whatever
the case is,
Don't worry.
Whatever the case is, it's a personality. Zibanejad is a star personality, a number one center for a few years. It's that personality they have to manage, and I think Sullivan will deal with it pretty good.
Well, the important thing I think we should touch on with the Drury extension, I thought was an interesting comment. Jim Cerny, I think he writes or he's the editor for Forever Brew Shirts now, but he worked for the Rangers for like a decade as like their writer. And he said in his entire time with the Rangers, they never, ever did a press release for a front office guy getting extended. So basically the inference is that they did this as a PR thing to say the players, Drury isn't going anywhere, so get over it or get out.
That's fine too. If that's the statement they're setting, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Maybe they need that. Maybe they need to be pushed like that. Like we said, they were pouting and stuff. Get over it. You're getting paid a lot of money, most of you. Get the hell over it and play the game.
Yeah.
You know, there's no reason why they should have been this bad. Not first. If they didn't make first place and they got in the third spot, that's one thing. But to be almost last place in the league, that's unacceptable.
All right, so let's wrap up.
We got a question. Wait, we got a question for Cousin Drew.
Oh, okay.
How about the Bushnevich hat trick or the Brett Howden game winner in Vegas? So I'll phrase it as: how do you look forward to managing your assets better in the future?
You know, I gotta say, personally, for me, I think that the Rangers moving on from certain players isn't necessarily a problem, right? Like trading Capo Caco, for example. I don't necessarily have an issue with the Rangers moving on from Capo Caco. My problem is that they seem to move on from these guys when they can't maximize their value or don't maximize their value. I don't necessarily care that they traded Pavel Buchnevich. I love Buchnevich as a player. Everybody knows that who's been listening to this podcast. But trading him for a second in Sammy Blais and then turning that second into nothing other than a couple of months of, I think it was Andrew Kopp, is horrible asset management. The guy's in his prime. He's a point per game player in the league. It's crazy to me. I think that you have to. So the same issue, Coach, is with Kakko.
If go ahead.
No, the same issue is with Kakko, trading him for a third-round pick and a sixth plus Will Borgen, and then locking up Borgen for $4+ million for 5 years. I don't necessarily think that was great asset management because they could have included Kakko in a deal with Buffalo for Jack Eichel a couple years ago, and then nobody wanted to do it, including me. So once you say no to that, you got to see it through. You can't then cave and move him for lesser value later. Or I guess you can look at it as cutting your losses, but I don't really look at it that way. To me, I'd rather invest in an asset and give him an opportunity to succeed or sell high. Those are the two ways that you can go. Selling low should never really be an option for a GM. Shouldn't.
Well, the Jack Eichel was a big question mark at the time he had the neck injury. So maybe that's why people said it. I didn't pay that close attention.
Well, it's like Schneider.
If
Coach,
the Rangers would,
it's the same thing.
If the Rangers would have won that year when they got Kopp, no one would be talking about that. That's what they got for Buchnevich.
Okay, I mean,
it would have been a similar thing in '94. They came close with Kopp, and
unfortunately, though, you say that, and I got to tell you that nine times out of 10, if not more, probably 9.8 times out of 10, that fails. So you're taking a huge risk when you move a big asset. You got to look at a player and say that we've invested a lot in this player, and we're now going to move this player for less than what we've invested. We've spent 6 years developing Pavel Buchnevich. He's been nothing but a 40-point guy. We haven't given him top minutes. We haven't given him power play time. We haven't allowed him to grow. This year he broke out a little. Now he's a 50-point player. Instead of giving him $5 million for 4 years like St. Louis did and seeing if he develops, let's trade him for a second in Sammy Blais. I don't like that. To me, that you've invested all that time in the player.
With that. Plus, you didn't get the bag of logo pucks. So
if you're telling me, we're going to trade Buchnevich because we want to give Kakko that ice time, invest in Kakko, and we got a first-round pick for Bush plus a prospect. Fine. Then give Kakko that ice time, get the first and the prospect, and I could say, okay, I can understand that from a cap perspective, whatever. I don't understand the move generally because they didn't give Kakko that ice time. They went out and they traded for Vetrano and gave him that ice time. And they went out and did this and they went out and did that, and Kakko still was on the third line. He didn't play in the power.
They
didn't play Kravtsov. They didn't play Kakko. They didn't give that ice time to young players. So I didn't understand it.
That was the exact reason they gave when they traded him.
What's that?
I was saying that was the exact reasoning when they traded him. Drury said we wanted to create openings for those young players, and then Quinn never gave it to him. So that's why everyone got so pissed off.
Never did. Never.
All right. So my question with Drury is, you went out, you got Borgen and Vakanainen, and you signed both of them, right?
Yeah, he did. He extended them both.
Then you traded and you got DeHaan. You had Ruedel in the system already from last year, right?
Yep.
You get DeHaan, and who else did they get? Another defenseman. And then they don't play and Susie. Why are you getting all these guys if you just signed Vakanainen and Borgen?
Well, I think they're trying
I think they're overloaded with defensemen that you're not going to, unless they're creating assets to make a move in the offseason. That's fine. I
didn't
then
understand.
You bring up Robertson at the end. You don't even play DeHaan. So if I'm him, I'm pissed too. Should he have said what he said? I don't think so. But why'd you trade for me?
Yeah, I understand your question. I think the timing of the DeHaan inclusion in that trade. First of all, DeHaan was acquired by the team. Each NHL team has a contract limit, so they can only have a certain amount of contracts. 50 is the number that your team can have. So sometimes when you make a trade, you'll see like a random player included who has no NHL future or is a veteran on like a cheap deal, And oftentimes that is just a contract swap. So it's like, we're giving you Lindgren, we're giving you VC. That's 2 contract slots. In order to complete this trade, and I don't know Colorado's situation at the time, but a lot of times in order to complete this trade, we got to swap back 2 guys. So DeHaan is included. We got Lindgren. We don't have space for him on the NHL roster. He's included. At the time, they didn't get Soucy yet. Vakanainen, I think, was, he's being scratched or playing third pair. So getting DeHaan, giving him an opportunity to play made sense. But then the team said, let's go for it. Let's move this 3rd round pick we got and go get Soucy, who's signed for another year, and they liked him better than DeHaan. He's trying to improve the team. I don't blame DeHaan for being upset, but I don't really think DeHaan was acquired to save the season. The guy was on a 1-year deal. He's 33. He's a 6'7" guy. He's making $800K. He was acquired for depth. That's what he was. I mean, so from a GM perspective, that's the situation. Now, why do they extend Vakanainen and Borgen and acquire Soucy and all those guys I have no idea. For me, I wouldn't have done that. That's what I just personally wouldn't have, because I like the idea of the Rangers having the space going into the offseason and kind of being flexible on their defense pair. And I think Drury has kind of boxed himself in now, where he's got less than $10 million cap space. He's got to sign Cooley and Keandre or trade them, or those guys are also at risk of an offer sheet. We just saw what happened with Broberg and Holloway. You don't think a team like Edmonton or someone, I don't know who's got space off the top of my head, but doesn't want to sign Cooley to an offer sheet, give him a 2-year deal worth $6-7 mil, overpay?
I would keep Cooley over Keandre personally.
Well, how are you gonna match that when you don't have the cap space? Well, sure, but how are you gonna match that in the situation if a team comes in with a ton of space and is like, Cooley, 2 years, 6.57 million, they don't have to sign him for that long term, but let's just steal him by giving him a lot. If the Rangers match that, they got no cap space. Now they got to create cap space. You got to trade Kreider with a gun to your head. You got to trade Soucy with a gun to your head just to fill out the roster. So he's kind of boxed himself in a little bit with these defensive signings. And I don't think any of those players, Borgen, Soucy, or Vakanainen, are really like surefire top 4D. I mean, they're all kind of like 5-6 guys, right? In my mind, on a good team. Maybe Borgen is a 4, whatever. But they're kind of 5-6 guys, and I don't know. I don't understand the move.
I mean, I don't mind them signing them, because you let a guy like Mikkola get away, and he's obviously a big part of Florida right now. I think they're those kind of player, which I think are important.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not horrible, but then you got a lot. Like I said, then he's got to move a couple of these other guys. Something's got to happen.
Mikkola, by the way, when he signed for 2.5, right? Borgen signed for 4.1. That's a big difference when you get down to that. They
could have had Mikkola for 2.5 still.
Yeah, they could have. So I don't know. I mean, that's my opinion. That's how I'd answer the question, is I wouldn't have extended everyone. I'm not saying I wouldn't have signed them ultimately, but they're not free agents until July 1st. So why box yourself in going into July 1st? And now every time I go on Puckpedia to do anything to change this team, I have to trade Carson Soucy, and I have to look at trading Chris Kreider, or I can't really make any changes to the team. So it's like
another guy with a lot of time on his hands.
Oh yeah, I have so much time. I'm just saying, I'm sure a lot of fans go on Puckpedia. It's a common thing, but I'm just saying it's tough to do anything without moving those guys. But yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see. Next week, though, let's do our Rangers Ed season awards. So we made some changes last year, so we're going to keep those this year. Little Ed gets his Defensive Defenseman of the Year award. I cannot wait to know who Little Ed picked for his Defensive Defenseman of the Year with this disaster of a team. But it's going to be fun.
You didn't pick the best year to introduce it.
You could give it to.
Yeah. No, it was last year we introduced it.
So. No, I know, but I don't know if there's any.
We'll see who he picks this year. It should be fun. Yeah, it's going to be a fun awards session. So we'll do that to wrap up our Rangers season. We'll do our season awards. But Coach, I got to say, for the fans out there, I drafted some questions for this interview, and Coach did not know the questions. He
You
did
thought you
not
were
know.
throwing me some curveballs too, right?
He didn't know any of the questions. I think they were pretty reasonable and relevant to the issues of the team. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out what I'd ask. But I got to give you some credit. You did a really good job with that interview. You were very serious. I was really trying to get some comedic stuff in there, and you were not biting. So I give
think
you a
that
lot
was
of credit.
comedic in itself.
Yeah, it was.
All business.
I think everyone's used to him being funny or whatever, goofy, and he just took he was a true coach for a
See
good
the
half
side of
hour,
Coach Ed?
45 minutes there.
Yeah, see the side of Coach Ed that we're gonna clip that and send it to the Rangers, and hopefully we hear back.
He put on that hat and he locked in.
Locked in.
Dolan's gonna watch it and he's gonna be like, "You're hired."
Yeah, so
he's gonna be the new Glenn Sather.
What we should have done before going into the interview is played the commercial for Coach's Corner.
Oh,
so why don't we play it now before we wrap up?
Yep, that's a good idea.
Shout out to
our sponsor.
Shout out to our sponsor.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, Coach Ed here. I'm over here in the shop at Bella Italia, Marble, Granite, and Quartz, picking up my order for a nice little bathroom I'm doing. I've been a contractor almost as long as I'm a hockey coach. So listen to me when I tell you, when you want the quality work and craftsmanship, come and see the boys over at Bella. They serve all 5 boroughs, Westchester, Long Island, all the way out to Montauk. Whether you're a Ranger fan, Islander fan, Devils fan, they're going to take care of you no matter what. Make sure you give them a call, 516-561-1018. Let's go, Rangers.
All right, boys, bring it in.
Got to please send that picture of him holding the trophy with the video.
That'll be his cover letter.
On the cover letter. Yeah, like a headshot. Send it like a headshot in. And
it's got to be like a whole like highlight reel because we have like his locker room speech after we won the conference.
His interviews. Yeah, you actually have to take the time to do that and submit it. It has to be submitted before they hire Sullivan.
Anybody who does that, if I get
anybody who does
Sullivan, comes with me.
It's good. I mean, they're probably going to hire Sullivan, right? Like we're all in agreement there.
I would be absolutely stunned. They did.
So let's do it before they hire Sullivan. Maybe they respond. I mean,
can you imagine the Elliot Friedman tweet? Wait, in a shocking breaking news.
Yeah. That Elliot Friedman tweet's gonna hit so hard, man.
It'll be like in the campaign. It'll be like in the campaign. He went out and he shot his opponent in the leg, and miraculously he went up and pulled.
We're gonna send the tweet. We're gonna send the tweet to Coach Ed in the chat. Rangers hire Ed Armolino as coach. Who? And he's gonna be like, "What?" He's gonna find out. Oh man. Anyway.
Oh shit! So good.
Shout out
to
our sponsors,
boys.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You guys did a great job. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It worked out for sure. We're gonna get a lot of good clips from it. Get a lot of good moments in for sure. I didn't shout out to Luke. I didn't shout out Lucarelli when I introduced the episode. That's my bad. So shout out to Lucarelli Law. What is it? You need a lawyer?
No, Dom. Without Dom, this podcast doesn't exist. So thank you. For the sponsorship and all the other sponsors as well. Sorrento's, Old Country Tile. Thank you for supporting the show, and listeners. That's how you can support us the most. Not just listening, but actually engaging with our sponsors, and Sugar Sweet Treats. All of them. So thank you again for a great season. And next week we'll do our awards and wrap it up, and then we'll go into off-season mode as other teams battle for the Stanley Cup. So,
all right.
At least the Devils are out, right? So we can enjoy that.
Little Ed, I don't think me or you are going to be winning the Sam Rosen plaque. Tampa looks like they're losing again. They might go down tonight. Man.
It's okay.
They're out. 1 week in, we're done. Our brackets are toast.
Guys, I told you, why did you go against the team that went to the finals 2 years in a row in round
I
one?
don't know.
I just thought they'd be battered and Tampa, and they
It's
didn't
not
really
over.
work healthy
Not
towards the
over.
end of the season.
It's not
Yeah,
over yet,
Lightning looked
guys.
hot, man. Lightning looked hot, but yeah, it's not over yet. We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you, listeners, for joining and engaging, and we'll see you guys next week.
Love
Have a
you
good
guys.
night, fellas. Love you
Let's go
guys.
Rangers, I guess. I don't know.
Let's go
We do it?
Rangers.
All right.
Don't give up.